Tyrion. Janos Slynt was a butcher's son, and he laughed like a man chopping meat. "More wine?" Tyrion asked him. "I should not object," Lord Janos said, holding on to his cup. He was built like a keg and had a similar capacity. "I would not object at all. That's a fine red. From the arbour?" "Dornish," Tyrion gestured, and his serving man poured. But for the servants, he and Lord Janos were alone in the small hall, a small candlelit table surrounded by darkness. "Quite the find. Dornish wines are not often so rich." "Rich," said the big frog-faced man, taking a healthy gulp. He was not a man for sipping, Janos Slynt. Tyrion had made note of that once. "Yes, rich. That's the very word I was looking for. The very word. You might have a gift for words, Lord Tyrion, if I might say so, and you tell a droll tale. Droll, yes." "I'm pleased you think so. But I am not a lord as you are. A simple Tyrion will suffice for me, Lord Janos." "As you wish." He took another swallow, dribbling wine down the front of his satin doublet. He was wearing a cloth of gold half-cape fastened with a miniature spear, its point enamelled in dark red, and he was well and truly drunk. Tyrion covered his mouth and belched politely. Unlike Lord Janos, he had gone very easy on the wine, but he was very full. The first thing he'd done after taking up residence in the Tower of the Hand was inquire after the finest cook in the city and take her into his service. This evening they had supped on oxtail soup, summer greens tossed with pecans, grapes, red fennel, and crumbled cheese, hot crab pie, spice squash, and quails drowned in butter. Each dish had come with its own wine. Lord Janos allowed that he'd never eaten so well. "No doubt that will change when you take your seat in Harrenhal," Tyrion said. "For a certainty. Perhaps I should ask the cook of yours to enter my service. What do you say?" "Wars have been fought for far less," he said, and then he had a good laugh. "You're a bold man to take Harrenhal for your seat. Such a grim place, and huge, costly to maintain, and some say cursed as well." "Why should I fear a pile of stone?" He hooted at the notion. "A bold man, you said. You must be bold to rise, as I have. To Harrenhal, yes, and why not? You know, you are a bold man too, I sense. Small, mayhap, but bold." "You are too kind. More wine?" No, truly Oh, gods be damned, yes. Why not? A bold man drinks his fill." "Truly." Tyrion filled Lord Slynt's cup to the brim. "I've been glancing over the names you put forward to take your place as commander of the city watch." "Good men, fine men. Any of the six'll do, but I'd choose Aladdin, my right arm. Good man. Loyal. Pick him and you won't be sorry, if he pleases the king." "To be sure." Tyrion took a small sip of his own wine. "I've been considering Sir Jacelyn Bywater. He's been captain of the Mudgate for 3 years, and he served with valour during Balon Greyjoy's rebellion. King Robert knighted him a pike, and yet his name does not appear on your list." Lord Janos Slynt took a gulp of wine and sloshed it round in his mouth for a moment before swallowing. "Bywater, well, brave man to be sure, yet he's rigid, that one. A queer dog. The men don't like him. A cripple, too. Lost his hand at pike. That's what got him knighted. A poor trade, if you ask me. A hand for a sir." He laughed. "Sir Jacelyn thinks overmuch of himself and his honour, as I see it. You do better leaving that one where he is, my Tyrion. Aladdin's the man you want." "Deem is little loved in the streets, I am told." "He's feared. That's better." "What is it I hear of him? Some trouble in a brothel?" "Oh, that's not his fault, look, Tyrion. No, he never meant to kill the woman. That was her own doing. He warned her to stand aside and let him do his duty." "Still, mothers and children, he might have expected she tried to save the babe." Tyrion smiled. "Have some of this cheese. It goes splendidly with the wine. Tell me, why did you choose Deem for that unhappy task?" "A good commander knows his men, Tyrion. Some are good for one job, some for another. Doing for a babe, and her still on the tick, that takes a certain sort. Not every man would do it. even if it was only some whore and a whelp." "I suppose that's so." Tyrion hearing "only some whore," and thinking of Shay and Tysha long ago, and all the women who had taken his coin and his seed over the years. Slint went on, oblivious. "Hard man for a hard job is Deem. Does as he's told, and never a word afterward." He cut off a slice of the cheese. "This is fine. Sharp. Give me a good sharp knife and a good sharp cheese, and I'm a happy man." Tyrion shrugged. "Enjoy it while you can. With the Riverlands in flame and Renly king in Highgarden, good cheese will soon be hard to come by. So who sent you after the whore's bastard?" Lord Janos gave Tyrion a wary look, then laughed and wagged a wedge of cheese at him. "You're a sly one, Tyrion. Thought you could trick me, do you? It takes more than wine and cheese to make Janos Slint tell more than he should. I pride myself. Never a question and never a word afterward. Not with me." "As with Deem." "Just the same. You make him your commander while I'm off to Harrenhal, and you won't regret it." Tyrion broke off a nibble of the cheese. It was sharp indeed, and veined with wine. Very choice. "Whoever the king names will not have an easy time stepping into your armour, I can tell. Lord Mormont faces the same problem." Lord Janos looked puzzled. "I thought she was a lady, Mormont. Beds down with bears. That one?" "It was her brother I was speaking of. Jor Mormont, the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. When I was visiting him on the wall, he mentioned how concerned he was about finding a good man to take his place. The Watch gets so few good men these days." Tyrion grinned. "He'd sleep easier if he had a man like you, I imagine. Or the valiant Alardim." Lord Janos roared. "Small chance of that." "One would think," Tyrion said. "But life does take queer turns. Consider Eddard Stark, my lord. I don't suppose he ever imagined his life would end on the steps of Baelor's Sept." "There were damn few did," Lord Janos allowed, chuckling. Tyrion chuckled too. "A pity I wasn't there to see it. They say even Varys was surprised." Lord Janos laughed so hard his gut shook. "The spider," he said, "knows everything they say. Well, he didn't know that." "How could he?" Tyrion put the first hint of a chill in his tone. "He helped persuade my sister that Stark should be pardoned on the condition he take the black." "Eh?" Janos Slint blinked vaguely at Tyrion. "My sister, Cersei," Tyrion repeated, a shade more strongly, in case the fool had some doubt who he meant. "The Queen Regent." "Yes." Slint took a swallow. "After that, well, the king commanded it, my lord. The king himself." "The king is 13, Tyrion reminded him. "Still, he is the king." Slint's jowls quivered when he frowned. "The lord of the 7 kingdoms." "Well, 1 or 2 of them at least," Tyrion said with a sour smile. "Might I look on your spear?" "My spear?" Lord Janos blinked in confusion. Tyrion pointed. "The clasp that fastens your cape." Hesitantly, Lord Janos drew out the ornament and handed it to Tyrion. "We have goldsmiths in Lannisport who could do better work," he opined. "The red enamel blood is a shade much, if you don't mind me saying. Tell me, my lord, did you drive the spear into the man's back yourself, or did you only give the command?" "I gave the command, and I'd give it again. Lord Stark was a traitor." The bald spot in the middle of Slint's head was beet red, and his gold-of-cloth cape had slithered off his shoulders onto the floor. "The man tried to buy me." "Little dreaming that you had already been sold." Slint slammed down his wine cup. "Are you drunk? If you think I'll sit here and have my honour questioned—" "What honour is that? I do admit you made a better bargain than Sir Jacelyn. A lordship at a castle for a spear thrust in the back, and you didn't even need to thrust the spear." He tossed the golden ornament back at Janos Slint. It bounced off his chest and clattered to the floor as the man rose. "I mislike the tone of your voice, my lord. Imp! I am the Lord of Harrenhal and a member of the King's Council. Who are you to chastise me like this?" Tyrion cocked his head sideways. I think you know quite well who I am. How many sons do you have?"
"What are my sons to you, dwarf?"
"Dwarf?" His anger flashed. "You should have stopped at imp. I am Tyrion of House Lannister, and some day, if you have the sense the gods gave a sea slug, you will drop to your knees in thanks that it was me you had to deal with and not my lord father. Now, how many sons do you have?" Tyrion could see the sudden fear in Janos Slynt's eyes.
"Three, my lord, and a daughter. Please, my lord."
"You need not beg." He slid off his chair. "You have my word no harm will come to them. The younger boys will be fostered out as squires. If they serve well and loyally, they may be knights in time. Let it never be said that House Lannister does not reward those who serve it. Your eldest son will inherit the title Lord Slynt and this appalling sigil of yours." He kicked at the little golden spear and sent it skittering across the floor. "Lands will be found for him, and he can build a seat for himself. It will not be Harrenhal, but it will be sufficient. It will be set up to him to make a marriage for the girl." Janos Slynt's face had gone from red to white.
What are you?"
His jowls were quivering like mounds of suet. "What do I mean to do with you?" Tyrion let the oath stumble for a moment before he answered. "The Carrack's summer's dream sails on the morning tide. Her master tells me she will call at Gulltown, the Three Sisters, the Isle of Skagos, and Eastwatch by the sea. When you see Lord Commander Mormont, give him my fond regards and tell him I have not forgotten the needs of the Night's Watch. I wish you long life and good service, my lord." Once Janos Slynt realized he was not to be summarily executed, the colour returned to his face. He thrust his jaw out.
"We'll see about this, imp. Dwarf, perhaps you'll be on that ship. What do you think of that? Perhaps it'll be you on the wall."
He gave an anxious bark of laughter.
"You and your threats, well, we'll see. I'm the king's friend, you know. We shall hear what Joffrey has to say about this, and Littlefinger, and the Queen. Oh, yes, Janos Slynt has a good many friends. We'll see who goes sailing, I promise you. Indeed we will."
Slynt spun on his heel like the watchman he'd once been and strode the length of the small hall, boots ringing on the stone. He clattered up the steps, threw open the door, and came face to face with a tall lantern-jawed man in black breastplate and gold cloak. Strapped to the stump of his right wrist was an iron hand. "Janos," he said, deep-set eyes glinting on a prominent brow ridge and a shock of salt and pepper hair. 6 gold cloaks moved quietly into the small hall behind him as Janos Slynt backed away. "Lord Slynt," Tyrion called out, "I do believe you know Sir Jacelyn Bywater, our new commander of the City Watch." "We have a litter waiting for you, my lord," Sir Jacelyn told Slynt. "The docks are dark and distant, and the streets are not safe by night. Men." As the gold cloaks ushered out their one-time commander, Tyrion called Sir Jacelyn to his side and handed him a roll of parchment. "It is a long voyage, and Lord Slynt will want company. See that these 6 join him on the Summer's Dream." Bywater glanced over the names and smiled. "As you will." "There's one," Tyrion said quietly. "Deem. Tell the captain it would not be taken amiss if that one should happen to be swept overboard before they reach Eastwatch." "I'm told these northern waters are very stormy, my lord." Sir Jacelyn bowed and took his leave, his cloak rippling behind him. He trod on Slynt's gold-of-cloth cape on his way. Tyrion sat alone, sipping at what remained of the fine, sweet Dornish wine. Servants came and went, clearing the dishes from the table. He told them to leave the wine. When they were done, Varys came gliding into the hall, wearing flowering lavender robes that matched his smell. "Oh, sweetly done, my good lord." "Then why do I have a bitter taste in my mouth?" He pressed his fingers to his temples. "I told them to throw Al-Ardim into the sea. I am sorely tempted to do the same with you." "You might be disappointed with the result," Varys replied. "The storms come and go, the waves crash overhead, the big fish eat the little fish, and I keep on paddling. Might I trouble you for a taste of that wine Lord Slynt enjoyed so much?" Tyrion waved at the flagon, frowning. Varys filled a cup. "Ah, Sweet as summer. He took another sip. I hear the grapes singing on my tongue. I wondered what that noise was. Tell the grapes to keep still. My head is about to split. It was my sister. That was what the oh-so-loyal Lord Janos refused to say. Circe sent the gold cloaks to that brothel. Varys tittered nervously. So he'd known all along. You left that part out, Tyrion said accusingly. Your own sweet sister, Varys said, so grief-stricken he looked close to tears. It is a hard thing to tell a man, my lord. I was fearful how you might take it. Can you forgive me? No, Tyrion snapped. Damn you! Damn her! He could not touch Circe, he knew. Not yet. Not even if he wanted to, and he was far from certain that he did. Yet it rankled to sit here and make a mummers show of justice by punishing the sorry likes of Janos Slynt and Allar Deem, while his sister continued on her savage course. In future you will tell me what you know, Lord Varys. All of what you know. The eunuch's smile was sly. That might take rather a long time, my good lord. I know quite a lot. Not enough to save this child, it would seem. Alas, no. There was another bastard, a boy, older. I took steps to see him removed from harm's way, but I must confess I never dreamed the babe would be at risk. A base-born girl, less than a year old, with a whore for a mother. What threat could she pose? She was Robert's, Tyrion said bitterly. That was enough for Circe, it would seem. Yes, it is grievous sad. I must blame myself for the poor sweet babe and her mother, who was so young and loved the king. Did she? Tyrion had never seen the dead girl's face, but in his mind she was Shay and Tysha both. Can a whore truly love someone, I wonder? No, don't answer. Such things I'd rather not know. He'd settled Shay in a sprawling stone and timber manse, with its own well and stable and garden. He'd given her servants to see to her wants, a white bird from the summer isles to keep her company, silks and silver and gemstones to adorn her, guards to protect her. And yet she seemed restive. She wanted to be with him more, she told him. She wanted to serve him and help him. You help me most here, between the sheets, he told her one night after their loving as he lay beside her, his head pillowed against her breast, his groin aching with a sweet soreness. She made no reply, save with her eyes. He could see there that it was not what she'd wanted to hear. Sighing, Tyrion started to reach for the wine again, then remembering Lord Janos and pushed the flagon away. It does seem my sister was telling the truth about Stark's death. We have my nephew to thank for that madness. King Joffrey gave the command. Janos Slynt and Sir Ilyn Payne carried it out, swiftly, without hesitation, almost as though they'd expected it. Yet we have been over this ground before, without profit. A folly. With the city watch in hand, my lord, you are well placed to see to it that his grace commits no further follies. To be sure, there is still the Queen's household guard to consider. The Red Cloaks? Tyrion shrugged. Vylar's loyalty is to Casterly Rock. He knows I am here with my father's authority. Circe would find it hard to use his men against me. Besides, there are only 100. I have half again as many men of my own, and 6,000 gold cloaks, if Bywater is the man you claim. You will find Sir Jacelyn to be courageous, honourable, obedient, and most grateful. To whom, I wonder? Tyrion did not trust Varys, though he was not denying his value. He knew things beyond a doubt. Why are you so helpful, my Lord Varys? He asked, studying the man's soft hands, the bald, powdered face, the slimy little smile. You are the hand. I serve the realm, the king, and you. As you serve Jon Arryn and Eddard Stark? I served Lord Arryn and Lord Stark as best I could. I was saddened and horrified by their most untimely deaths. Think how I feel. I'm like to be next. Oh, I think not, Varys said, swirling the wine in his cup. Power is a curious thing, my lord. Perchance you have considered the riddle I posed you that day in the inn? It has crossed my mind a time or two, Tyrion admitted. The king, the priest, and the rich man. Who lives and who dies? Who will the swordsman obey? It is a riddle without an answer, or rather too many answers. All depends on the man with the sword."
"And yet he is no one," Varys said. "He is neither crown nor gold nor favour of the gods, only a piece of pointed steel."
"That piece of steel is the power of life and death."
"Just so. Yet if it is the swordsmen who rule us in truth, why do we pretend our kings hold the power? Why should a strong man with a sword ever obey a child king like Joffrey, or a wine-sodden oaf like his father?"
"Because these child kings and drunken oafs can call other strong men with other swords."
"Then these other swordsmen have the same true power, or do they? Whence came their swords? Why do they obey?" Varys smiled. "Some say knowledge is power. Some tell us that all power comes from the gods. Others say it derives from law. Yet that day on the steps of Baelor's Sept, our godly High Septon and the lawful Queen Regent, and your ever so knowledgeable servant, were as powerless as any cobbler or cooper in town. Who truly killed Eddard Stark, do you think? Joffrey, who gave the command? Sir Ilyn Payne, who swung the sword? Or another?"
Tyrion cocked his head sideways. "Do you mean to answer your damned riddle, or only make my head ache worse?"
Varys smiled. "Here, then. Power resides where men believe it resides. No more and no less."
"So power is a mummer's trick?"
"A shadow on the wall," Varys murmured. "Yet shadows can kill, and ofttimes a very small man can cast a very large shadow."
Tyrion smiled. "Lord Varys, I'm growing strangely fond of you. I may kill you yet, but I think I'd feel sad about it."
"I'll take that as high praise."
"What are you, Varys?" Tyrion found he truly wanted to know. "A spider, they say."
"Spies and informers are seldom loved, my lord. I am but a loyal servant of the realm."
"And a eunuch. Let us not forget that."
"I seldom do."
"People have called me a half-man, too, yet I think the gods have been kinder to me. I am small, my legs are twisted, and women do not look upon me with any great yearning, yet I am still a man. Shay is not the first to grace my bed, and one day I will take a wife and sire a son. If the gods are good, he'll look like his uncle and think like his father. You have no hope to sustain you. Dwarfs are a jape of the gods, but men make eunuchs. Who cut you, Varys? When and why? Who are you truly?"
The eunuch's smile never flickered, but his eyes glittered with something that was not laughter. "You are kind to ask, my lord, but my tale is long and sad, and we have treasons to discuss." He drew a parchment from the sleeve of his robe. "The master of the king's galley, White Hart, plots to slip anchor 3 days hence to offer his sword and ship to Lord Stannis."
Tyrion sighed. "I suppose we must make some sort of bloody lesson out of the man."
"Sir Jesselyn could arrange for him to vanish, but a trial before the king would help assure the continued loyalty of the other captains."
"And keep my royal nephew occupied as well." "As you say. Put him down for a dose of Joffrey's justice."
Varys made a mark on the parchment. "Sir Horace and Sir Hobber Redwine have bribed a guard to let them out of Postern Gate the night after next. Arrangements have been made for them to sail on the Pentoshi galley Moonrunner disguised as oarsmen."
"We can keep them on those oars for a few years, see how they fancy it." He smiled. "No, my sister would be distraught to lose such treasured guests. Inform Sir Jesselyn, seize the man they bribed, and explain what an honor it is to serve as a brother of the Night's Watch, and have men posted around the Moonrunner, in case the Redwines find a second guard short of coin."
"As you will." Another mark on the parchment. "Your man Timid slew a wine-seller's son this evening at a gambling den on the Street of Silver. He accused the man of cheating at tiles."
"Was it true?"
"Oh, beyond a doubt."
"Then the honest men of the city owe Timid a debt of gratitude. I shall see he has the king's thanks."
The eunuch gave a nervous giggle and made another mark.
We also have a sudden plague of holy men. The comet has brought forth all manner of queer priests, preachers, and prophets, it would seem. They beg in the wine sinks and pot shops and foretell doom and destruction to anyone who stops to listen. Tyrion shrugged. We are close on the 300th year since Aegon's landing. I suppose it is only to be expected. Let them rant. They are spreading fear, my lord. I thought that was your job. Varys covered his mouth with his hand. You are very cruel to say so. One last matter. Lady Tanda gave a small supper last night. I have the menu in the guest list for your inspection. When the wine was poured, Lord Giles rose to lift a cup to the king, and Sir Balon Swan was heard to remark, "We'll need 3 cups for that." Men laughed. Tyrion raised a hand. Enough. Sir Balon made a jest. I'm not interested in treasonous table talk, Lord Varys. You are as wise as you are gentle, my lord. The parchment vanished up the eunuch's sleeve. We both have much to do. I will leave you. When the eunuch had departed, Tyrion sat for a long time watching the candle and wondering how his sister would take the news of Janos Slynt's dismissal. Not happily, if he was any judge. But beyond sending an angry protest to Lord Tywin in Harrenhal, he did not see what Cersei could hope to do about it. Tyrion had the city watch now, plus 150 fierce clansmen and a growing force of sellswords recruited by Bronn. He would seem well protected. Doubtless Eddard Stark thought the same. The Red Keep was dark and still when Tyrion left the small hall. Bran was waiting in the solar. Slynt? He asked. Lord Janos would be sailing for the Wall on the morning tide. Varys would have me believe I have replaced one of Joffrey's men with one of my own. More likely I have replaced Littlefinger's man with one belonging to Varys, but so be it. You best know. Timett killed a man. Varys told me. The sellsword seemed unsurprised. The fool figured a one-eyed man would be easier to cheat. Timett pinned him by the wrists to the table with a dagger and ripped out his throat bare-handed. He has this trick where he stiffens his fingers. Spare me the grisly details. My supper is sitting badly in my belly, Tyrion said. How goes your recruiting? Well enough. 3 new men tonight. How do you know which ones to hire? I look 'em over, I question 'em, to learn where they've fought and how well they lie. Bronn smiled. And then I give 'em a chance to kill me while I do the same for them. Have you killed any? No one we could have used. And if one of them kills you, he'll be the one you want to hire. Tyrion was a little drunk and very tired. Tell me, Bronn, if I told you to kill a babe, an infant girl, say, still at her mother's breast, would you do it, without question? Without question, no. The sellsword rubbed thumb and forefinger together. I'd ask how much. And why would I ever need your Alardeem, Lord Slynt? Tyrion thought. I have 100 of my own. He wanted to laugh, he wanted to weep. Most of all, he wanted Shay.
So Tyrion.
Tyrion Lannister has dinner with Janos Slynt.
Oh, yeah.
Who reminds me of Umbridge, because apparently he looks like a frog.
Right? He seems like the perfect match for Umbridge.
He does. They could have little tadpoles together.
If only he wasn't being sent up to the Night's Watch, where he cannot take any women or father any children.
Nope. He'd have to go digging for treasure like everyone else.
Yep. Good luck with that. Such a smooth way that Tyrion does it, too.
Yep. Pretty clever.
Mm-hmm. Didn't get the information he wanted out of him, though.
No,
but he knows.
He knows. I think he got enough information not to necessarily 100% confirm it, like with solid fact, but enough to confirm it in his own mind that I thought so, I had the suspicion, I'm right. I don't have solid paper proof, but now I know. She definitely did it.
And by swapping him out, did he really put his man in charge, or did he just put Varys?
Right, because Janos Slynt was Littlefinger's man.
Yeah.
Varys suggested this new guy, so I'm thinking that Tyrion thinks he's being very clever, but I'm thinking that Varys is the one being very clever, and Tyrion thinks he has the City Watch, but does he, or does Varys really have the City Watch?
He even says it. Eddard
Yeah.
Stark thought he was safe too.
Yep.
Didn't work out.
Nope.
And Varys, getting threatened with being thrown in the sea, doesn't seem too worried about that.
Yeah, there's that mermaid.
Yeah,
the mermaid.
theory.
What was the line? Let me see if I can find it real quick. Storms come and go, the waves crash overhead, the big fish eat the little fish, and I keep on paddling.
Just keep swimming, just keep swimming.
Varys is a mermaid.
Varys is Dory. Confirmed.
Confirmed.
So yeah, very interesting to see how that all played out. And Tyrion, at least, being very smart about it in trying to get as many men on his side as possible.
Absolutely.
Unlike Eddard, who was just like, I have my Northmen, that's all I need. Tyrion's like, no, I'm gonna get everyone I can.
Yeah, just to be on the safe side. He even questions the Lannister guards. He's like, well, they're loyal to House Lannister. I don't think Cersei would. But maybe. But I'm not sure. Better make sure my clansmen are prepared, yeah. He, I think, shows a little bit of kind of where his moral compass lies. He really is not down for the fact that they killed this lady and her baby.
Yeah.
You know, what motive does Cersei possibly have? She's Robert's baby, but she's a girl. What kind of claim to the throne is she going to possibly have?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a little bit of resentment from Cersei. She said that she had no feelings toward Robert and she hated him and all this, but I think there was still some resentment about him going out and sleeping with other women.
Right? Was this purely a personal thing for Cersei, like a vengeance kind of thing, or is she really that paranoid that someone may try to marry her to a rich lord or something and make some kind of political connection?
I mean, probably partly, but I think there's definitely a bit of, I don't want any reminders of Robert.
Yeah.
Maybe there wasn't any love there, but still she doesn't want any reminders of, him smacking her or doing any of that bad stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then we also find out that Varys is the one that sent Gendry up to the wall.
Yes.
He's trying to save Gendry. Why?
But then who sent the guards? How did
Cersei.
they know? But how does she know?
How did
Varys tell them?
So if Varys...
Did he just send him up there to look like the good guy and then went over to Cersei? Oh, by the way...
Or did Littlefinger?
Maybe. I don't know. Varys is very good at...
Because Littlefinger just lost the City Watch, and now potentially Varys has the City Watch. Mm-hmm. So did Littlefinger...
And Littlefinger did notice the book on Eddard's desk, which would give him...
And Littlefinger would have been paying attention to Gendry and where Eddard Stark was going and why Eddard Stark was going there. And did Littlefinger say, go to that blacksmith?
Yeah.
And so is Varys trying to usurp Littlefinger by saying, we're going to send Gendry to the wall?
Mm-hmm. And was the whole idea to get the watch under his man just another play to usurp
Littlefinger?
Baelish?
Right. Like, are Baelish and Varys playing their own little power play thing, and Cersei and Tyrion are just kind of like their pawns in the situation?
Oh, 100%.
And Cersei and Tyrion... I guess Tyrion maybe knows a little bit more, but they're not completely aware of it because they're so focused on, like, getting each other. Mm-hmm. That they're not considering the fact that they're being used by Littlefinger and Varys for their own needs. They're just so focused on the fact that they, like, hate each other.
Well, it kind of goes back to Varys talking about, the High Lords playing their Game of Thrones and how they don't notice the suffering or anything else going on below them.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they don't notice the scheming going on below them. It's kind of,
Yeah.
sort of reference Harry Potter. It's kind of like Voldemort didn't respect the magic of house elves because they were below him.
Right, and that's how
The High Lords are like, Varys is a eunuch. He's below us. He couldn't hurt us.
Yeah.
Tyrion's a dwarf. He's below us.
Although Tyrion does poke at Varys a little bit about being a eunuch.
A little bit. But, well, they go back and forth. They don't like each other. But that being said, I think Tyrion would make a great king after hearing his diplomacy in all these situations.
Right.
He seems very just in everything, Who was it that made a jest at Joffrey when they drank, and there was someone who made the jest. We'll need 3 drinks if we're gonna.
Balon Swan.
Yeah.
Balon Swan said he was talking some shit. And
Varys says it like, should I have him beheaded? Should I make him a eunuch? What's the plan? It's like, he's joking. Give him a break.
Right. But it also shows you how serious these things can be and how you really have to be careful about what you say depending on who it is that's passing the judgment. If Varys had reported that to Joffrey, that dude would be dead.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Or, maybe if it was Tywin, maybe Tywin would have just said, yeah, kill his ass.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not, or maybe Tywin would have just said, rip out his tongue. But we don't really know what he would do. I don't think Tywin would kill him either. That was the first name that popped into my head. But, Cersei probably would kill him. Mm-hmm. And I think it also plays into Varys bringing the riddle back up again, because he talks about the riddle, and he explains that the riddle is power resides where men believe it resides. I think that's a very important point, and I think Martin hammers that home over and over and over. And this is the first time you see it laid out in black and white that that's a major theme in the story.
Exactly. The common people have the High Lords outnumbered. Mm-hmm. So if they start to believe that power lies somewhere else,
it will shift.
Also a theme, we got the imagery of the casting a large shadow again.
Yeah, Varys says that a very small man could cast a very large shadow.
And we learned, what was it? I think it was the 3rd chapter or something like that in the first book, when Tyrion and Jon are speaking together.
Oh yeah, and then Tyrion walks back into the castle, into the hall.
Jon talks about what a large shadow he casts.
Yeah. Same language, same imagery again.
Yeah. Tyrion cast in the shadow.
We also get some insight into Tyrion is doing everything he can to make Shae as comfortable as he can, and she's just not feeling it.
Yep.
She's not happy. And Tyrion seems to have a soft spot for whores. He seems personally very upset about this lady that died, because in his mind he pictures Shae or Tysha or any of the other women that he's slept with. So he has this personal attachment to it. And Varys says that the lady that was murdered, she loved the king. And Tyrion for a second almost wants to think can prostitutes love men? It's almost like he wants to believe it, because he wants to believe that Shae is falling in love with him, but he won't allow himself to believe it. So that's a whole interesting dynamic with Tyrion and 100%. Love. Is he just... It's all about the prostitutes all the time.
Exactly. Because, in love, Tyrion has come up short. You're welcome for that one.
And then in the very end of the chapter, we get...
But hey...
I love this little exchange between Tyrion and Bronn, where he asks Bronn, would you do it? Would you have killed the, would you have asked any questions?
Unquestioningly.
Would you have unquestioningly just murdered this woman and her baby? And Bronn says, unquestioningly, no. I would have asked how much. And I think in that moment, you just get such a huge sense of what kind of person Bronn really is.
Yeah. But I love Bronn.
I do too. I love Bronn. He's great. He's so much better in the books than he is in the show, I think.
He really is.
He becomes such a, parody of himself by the end of the series.
But I will say the actor who played Bronn was a great fit. I think he did a fantastic job. It was another time where casting was done perfectly.
Spot on. Yeah. The actor was great.
Pretty much all the casting was done really well. It was the writing that fell short in the show.
The cast, hands down, the casting for the show, every person cast was brilliant.
Mm-hmm. I think the only
they maybe didn't look like what they're supposed to look like in the book, but their performances were bar none fantastic.
I think the only casting that could have been better is the actress they use for Ciri in The Witcher. I think she would have made a great Daenerys. But number one, she's too young for that role because
that's an adult role.
She's actually like the perfect age, but since more adult things happen in that,
you have to.
And at the time when Game of Thrones first came out,
it was probably little,
probably like one.
Yeah, I was gonna say she was little. But as she is now, she looks exactly what you would think, like, book Daenerys would look like. Yeah, she's...
But it was one of those things where I watched the trailer and not too long ago, and that's why I thought it was like, it's Daenerys.
That's Dany. Yeah. I don't know. This was a great chapter. You get to kind of see what Tyrion's chops are as far as scheming goes.
Right.
He successfully ousted Janos Slynt.
This is when a lot of the great Tyrion moments happen.
Yeah, he's starting to play the game.
Yeah, and you really get to see a lot of his wit, especially when he's going back and forth with Varys.
Oh my god, I know. Just great conversations. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And all the little quips that are just down low.
We also just get so much information with these chapters with Tyrion, and so much to speculate on, because you have... Tyrion is scheming, Cersei is scheming, Littlefinger is scheming, Varys is scheming, and there's a lot of things that are happening that you have to try to figure out who's doing what, plotting what, and why, and you think that this person is scheming this for this reason, but actually have this person in the back pulling those strings, which you see through Tyrion. Tyrion is like, I control the City Watch, or do I? Does Varys control the City Watch? Am I being played right now?
And with Varys basically knowing everything, you got to imagine that I'm surprised his head hasn't exploded with so many backstabs and reverses.
Right, keeping track of everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And who chopped off his balls? We still do not know. Will we ever know?
Maybe he never had any. Maybe he was a mermaid.
That's right. If he's a mermaid, maybe he doesn't have them. Maybe he just releases his seed into the sea like a fish.
Exactly.
Doesn't need those bits.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why he won't tell Tyrion. He can't give away the secret that he's a mermaid.
Maybe the whole story will end with him. The whole Game of Thrones plot is just Varys's means of getting revenge on whoever did it.
Maybe. It's possible.
It is. Would be interesting to see.
It would be.
But until then, we will have to be content with finding out more about
Arya.
Yeah, nice.
This has just been back and forth. Tyrion, Arya.
I think this is one of the reasons why this is considered like
everyone's favorite book.
Yeah, one of the best. I think it goes between this one or number 3 are the best books.
Storm of Swords is really good too. Yeah, it's just like we haven't gotten a Dany chapter at all yet. We've gotten a Jon chapter. We haven't gotten a Dany chapter.
Oh yeah, we haven't.
It's literally been Catelyn, Tyrion, Arya, like over and over, and Sansa.
Well,
think we've hung out with Sansa.
she's busy traveling the wastes with her baby dragons.
This is true. Probably not much going
Got to
on.
keep you in suspense about the dragons. They
That's
ended
true.
on it, so they're now.
Can't just start out with the dragons.